Well, hello, welcome to another episode of Embrace Live. Thank you for joining us. It's great to see that we've got some people online already. Brilliant, and obviously you're very welcome as well. If you can't make it live and you're tuning in afterwards, then it's great that you're taking the time to kind of watch these episodes. So let me introduce myself. My name is Dave Dixon. I have the privilege of being part of Embrace Church in Darlington, part of the Taking Ground family, and there's a family of churches across the north of England, and I'm really pleased that I'm really excited to have our guest on tonight, Mike Beaumont, who's part of Taking Ground, and I'm really excited to catch up with him and hear about all of his experiences. Here is his story, and so on. We'll hear and so on very soon. I'm a little bit distracted there, sorry, just because I can see the comments already coming in, and the mighty Alan Fraser is already online, which is great, and he's joined us, and he's there, and he's actually just dubbed me Dave the Rave. I don't know about that. I'm a little bit too old, and I think I'm a little bit, short of hair for a raving kind of thing. I don't know whether that's... I certainly had long hair in my past and so on, but that was, through my heavy metal kind of stage and so on. Anyway, I've lost track already where we're up to. So let me just kind of explain a little bit what Embrace Church, or should I say Embrace Live, is all about, really, because as part of Embrace Church, like many other churches, obviously we had to find new ways to be able to connect with people during lockdown and so on. So this is, actually started, would you believe, over a year ago now, the beginning of May. We, just the beginning of the month, or last month, should I say, because it is the 1st of June, we celebrate our first birthday, which is great. So most weeks, although we've had a little bit of a break recently, and normally, because I work in education, I'm a teacher, I like to take kind of the school holidays and have a bit of a break and rest and recuperation. But we've made just for tonight, we've made a special effort, because unfortunately the other week when Mike was originally due to join us, sadly he was ill, but I'm pleased to say he's it looks much healthier now. I can see it on my other monitor. He's smiling. I can see, I'm just checking. Are you feeling much happier, Mike? We'll come and see you in a moment. All right, we'll check it out. But he's here, which is good stuff. And so I was determined that we get Mike on the show. And so, just make an exception for tonight. And, I'm really excited, like I say, as we hear from Mike. So, as always, with Embrace Live, we like to, if you're tuning in live now, and I can see Mike's joined us as well, which is great. Hi, Mike. We really want to make these sessions interactive. So we're going to hear from Mike tonight and just having a bit of a chat. I was describing earlier on, I like to make it all really informal, and it's not really scripted. We have a bit of a kind of an idea where we want to go. But, we just, within our conversations, we want to take time to, encourage you to ask your own questions, to make your own comments, and we want you to feel a part of this, not just a kind of passive viewing experiences. We have plenty of those, and that's why we want to do this live. And even if you're not able to catch this live tonight, but you watch it another time, and you still have some questions, well, I'm sure that Mike would be more than happy for you to get in touch with him, maybe about things that he talks about tonight, as we kind of look to see, hear his story, but also how he's involved in living out his faith, in serving in so many different areas, and what that's looked like over many years, and what's it looking like at the moment and in the future. So, really what we want to do is encourage you, if you haven't done so already, is to make sure that you don't miss episodes. So, set your reminders for 8 o'clock on a Wednesday. Like I say, we're here most weeks out of the year. And we also, really would love you to, if I just do this, to head over to our YouTube channel and just search for Embrace Church in Darlington. Do the usual thing there, hit like and subscribe and little notifications bell so you'll be notified when we post something new. It'd be great, because we really want to be able to have this YouTube channel address, Embrace Church Darlington, but you do need a certain amount of subscribers. So like we say, please, if you don't mind, just head over there and do that at some point. That'd be really great. Just head over to YouTube and search for Embrace Church Darlington. Why don't we just take a moment just to kind of quickly head over to Mike, who's ready and waiting, I can see, just to say a quick hello, make sure he's doing all right, and then we'll come back to him soon. So, hiya, Mike, how are you doing?
I'm good, Dave. Can I just check that you can see me at your end?
Yes, certainly can.
Oh,
you look great.
That's fine. My screen has frozen at Embrace Live starts in 5 minutes, 20 seconds.
Wow.
And that's all I see at the moment. So I'm just going to have to look at that and pretend that that's your smiling face.
Every blessing. No, it's great. I mean, maybe if we get a chance, it might be worth refreshing your screen. And if it goes, if it actually, because it would be good to have a bit of a face-to-face kind of conversation rather than that static screen. If it goes a little bit wrong, then we can always quickly reconnect you, and I can do that. And we'll make it look seamless. So, when I put the video on in a moment, it would be great. But we can certainly see you, and you look amazing. Are you feeling much better? Are you back?
I am, thank you. I was hit with the dreaded COVID, having escaped for 2 years and thinking that Superman, the kryptonite, finally caught up with me, which was quite a shock after 2 years of avoiding it.
Yeah.
But it was a very mild dose. It was really like a very mild flu. I've had worse flus, to be honest. So, thank God for those vaccines. They certainly did their trick as far as my wife and I were concerned.
Yeah.
We got over it pretty quickly, and we're fighting fit and raring to go again.
Good stuff. I'm really pleased to hear that. And like I say, I'm really pleased that you can come on the show tonight. So, Mike, what I'm going to do is I'm going to head back over to the scene which just kind of has my face on it. If you want to try and refresh your screen, see if that solves the problem, and then give it a go, and then we can see. Now, at this moment, you're muted. I'm looking at my other screen, people. That's why you can see I'm kind of glancing off to my right. So he's just at this moment in time has disconnected. And hopefully you can reconnect him. I'm going to keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, that would have been the shortest interview with Mike Beaumont ever, I think. Oh, he's actually trying to dial back in. Let's just see what's happening. All right. Okay. So I'm going to let him back in. And he's giving me a thumbs up. That's good news. That is good news. All right, so we're back. We're cooking on gas. All right, let me just take a moment then. Let's just kind of, thank you, Alan, for confirming that we can see everybody, can see your face. And let me see who else. Sue, great that you can. Sue Wrigglesworth, wonderful member of Embrace Church, Darlington. Mama Sue, as we like to call her. She's just tuning in tonight. And so, although she's not too well herself, unfortunately. So, Sue, we pray for you right now in Jesus' name that chest infection that you've got will be healed in your name, Jesus. So we pray full recovery and restoration for you. And the wonderful Paul Saxton's joined us as well, which, Paul, you can always rely on in encouragement. And his comment was obviously referring to a certain person not being able to see themselves would be an improvement. But we'll move on for that. And we'll maybe log that away for another time, Mr. Saxton. But it's good to have you with us, and thanks for tuning in tonight. So what I want to do, first of all, is I just want to, like I say, I want to highlight just here's some of the wonderful people, including Mr. Saxton, that's up there on the top right-hand corner. So these people are coming up. We've got over the next month or two. I've got these all dialed in, and got the dates already agreed and things like that. Now, what strikes me is that thanks, Paul. All right. What strikes me is that actually, it'd be great to have a few more people involved in there. Like I said, I've got dates up until August time, beginning of August, where then we'll take a break for holiday season, and then we'll be coming back after that towards, probably September time, end of August, September, but with some more guests and so on. And I'm just very conscious that even though those are good-looking fellas and actually look like the probably the world's worst boy band, that actually it's full of fellas. So really, I have got, and we have heard from wonderful women of God, but I'm conscious that, that is making a bit of a visual statement there. So I've got a list of people, and I've been jotting down wonderful women of God. I'm coming for you. I want to hear more from you, and so on. So we'll get some more dates in the diaries for these wonderful people, like we say. So, what I want to do now is let's head over to the leader's kind of intro video, and then we're going to hear, I want to bring Mike back on screen, and he hopefully should be able to see us now. I can see that he's back, which is great. We lost him again there for a minute, but I was so professional. I just carried on, and you didn't even notice, did you? Anyway, leader's intro, here we go. And here we are. Hello, Mike. There we go. Thank you for readjusting yourself on there. Can you? Let me just check. Can you see us? Can you see everything now?
And I don't know what's going on. I just keep losing connection with you tonight.
Right.
So,
well,
anyway,
we'll see what happens, and if we lose connection again, then just like I say, just feel free to dial back in again, and I'll do something, because even the mighty Paul Douglas. Let me just put this on screen. Just can recognise that seamless, just glossing over the wonderful technical hitches and things that are happening. What a pro. However, Mike, I must just say I'm a little bit intimidated here, because it wasn't too long ago that you've done lots of broadcasting in your time. I know that you have. And, obviously it wasn't too long ago that you were facing the cannon with the mighty J. John and so on, in a kind of pro environment and stuff like that. So, I'm hoping it's up to standard tonight.
Well, you've got a better accent than him for a start, so that's halfway there already, Dave.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to take that. That's progress. That's a little bit, encouragement. That's good. I was trying to come up with a witty kind of, rather than facing the cannon. I don't know, but I didn't come up with anything suitable, really, So maybe those of you I can see with Mike Connolly and the likes of Alan and certainly Mr. Saxton on, why don't you come up with some comments and kind of the equivalent then for face in the cannon, and we'll go from there. Mike, are you? It's great that you can join us. Like I say, thank you so much, and I'm really pleased that you and Liz are back to full health, and it's great that you do that. And I've been really excited just because I say this quite often to people. I said this to Johnny Mumby, who was on the show last week, and I've known Johnny for many years. Great fella, but and I met him particularly in the worship kind of setting. That I don't know what that was, the international symbol, I think, for worship. That's me playing my guitar. That's not the only way to worship. We know that. But I was saying to Johnny last week. I've met him loads of times, but I've not spent a lot of time other than doing the stuff. So, I've only kind of chatted with you briefly, because the majority of time that I've met you is when, and we'll plug this, and I will never stop plugging this, because, again, it is absolutely amazing opportunity and quality teaching at the School of Applied Theology, which, of course, you head up. You're principal of the school, aren't you?
Sounds very grand, that, doesn't it?
It does.
Give a man a title, and he's away.
I tell you what would be good, Mike. Why don't you kind of put yourself, for those people who haven't met you before, why don't you put yourself into context about who you are and kind of what do you do for a day job and all of that kind of thing, and then we can kind of go from there. If you wouldn't mind, that'd be great.
Sure. Well, for a day job, I am in that wonderful category called retired. But if my wife were here tonight, and she's not, she's gone out to another meeting, she would now be rolling on the floor with laughter that I was retired. So I tend to say I am semi-retired, which sort of then gets past her. So I am a semi-retired pastor, and I've been pastor ever since I was full-time pastor, ever since I was 27 years old.
Wow.
And I went into Christian ministry after being a school teacher before that.
Yeah.
So what I have been doing, so my day job is being a semi-pastor and working alongside Martin Dunkley and the team at Tees Valley Community Church, but also doing a host of other stuff, writing and broadcasting and things as well, which keeps me out of trouble. And when I'm not doing that, I'm developing my model railway, which is at the far end of the study, but you're not getting...
Right. That's interesting. I certainly, I don't know if Paul Hutchinson from Embrace Church. I don't know whether he's online, but he needs to be, because he's a fellow enthusiast. I was not aware of that. That's good. Interesting. Also, thank you for those people who are starting to kind of add their comments and things about the equivalent of facing the cannon. Obviously, Mr. Saxon staring down the barrel. I'm not quite sure. That sounds a bit ominous. There we go. Or roll out the barrel. I don't know whether that's, Mr. Connolly's there referring to maybe my portly stature. I don't know. It might be a bit personal there. Whatever. But thanks for bringing those in, guys. Obviously, it would be great. Feel free, if you're watching, to answer, pose your questions for Mike tonight, and I'm sure Mike, you'll be happy to answer those. As long as, they're normally pretty appropriate. They're normally okay, And obviously, I will censor them, at those points. But we don't normally have any issues. Although I am a bit concerned about Mr. Saxton, like I say. We shall see. All right. Is that okay? Have we go through? Yeah? Fab.
Sure.
I said this to Johnny as well, actually. John, I'm not going to refer to Johnny, although he's a great guy, but, the show last week. But I always love it when people have a background full of books. And I said to Johnny last week, I said, have you read all of those? Are those all of your books? And he said he's read most of them, and some of them were a little bit Harry Potter and things like that. But what about your good self? I mean, that's a good collection you've got behind you there, Mike. Have you read all of those?
Yeah, I've either read them all or certainly dipped into all of them at different points. Some of them are reference books, so you don't always read those from start to finish, obviously. But yeah, they're books that have been built up over the 40 odd years of being in Christian ministry.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I've pretty much read most of them. Probably a few more than anyway.
And of course, you've made reference to it. So I'm just going to hold up this one example, because I know that you're an author of a number of books. I think it's certainly. Well, let me read what it puts on the. As in preparation for this, as always, I've kind of gone over to the Taking Ground website, and just that little wonderful picture of you and Gordon next to you, actually. But your little kind of pen portrait says, Mike has over 40 years' experience as a pastor, which you've mentioned, mentor, Bible teacher. Excuse me, as I'm reading just off screen, lecturer, author, broadcaster, working with churches in our Salt and Light family, both in the UK and right around the world. He's written or made significant contributions to 15 books. There's just one great example I use this many times to dip into, particularly when I'm kind of preparing for my preachers and things like that, which are currently available in 25 languages. Is it, contributions to 15 books? Are there more on the way? Are you writing as we speak?
There's one on the computer right now. I'm just coming to the end of writing one. I'm 3 months ahead of schedule, which the publisher's very pleased about. So that's been keeping me busy for the last 6 months or so. What it is, unfortunately, because my contract doesn't allow me to, but I'll certainly be naming it as soon as it's ready to go.
Please do. And we're more than happy obviously to advertise those as we when we get the opportunity and so on. So like I say, you've got a rich history there, Mike, and you've got, lots of, I'm sure, certainly experience, but wisdom to go alongside that. And, just speaking personally, the School of Applied Theology has been fantastic. I've just completed this is where it messes with my OCD. Can I just say this messes with my OCD big time because of COVID and lockdown and everything else like that. I completed year 1, then we skipped to year 3. And then I'm going back to the year 2. I'm applying, if accepted, of course, for next year, for year 2, which is just completely because my folders are up here on my shelf just above me, and I've got year 1 and 3, and 2 is just omitted at the minute, and it's driving me. Well, what little hair I've got, but that's okay. Give me grace. I'm praying about that. There we go. But obviously, what we want to do tonight is we want to highlight that because, like I've just referenced there, it's a great opportunity and. It's great, along with Gordon and many others, Matt and so on, and the guest speakers who, deliver the sessions for the School of Applied Theology. It's just fantastic. It is really, really, really good stuff. In fact, actually, I think at this point, why don't I just take this, opportunity just to play the promotional kind of video, if that's all right, about that, and then we'll dip in a little bit into that. Is that okay, Mike?
Absolutely.
Here we go.
A movement of world changers and cultural reformers. That's what we want our churches in Taking Ground to be. And School of Applied Theology is one of our great tools to help bring that about. It runs over 3 years, though you can take a break in those years at any time, and involves just 5 Saturdays in each year. There's also a track which lets you follow that up with 5 tutorials where you study a book or do an assignment to dig deeper into the issue that we've looked at. Each Saturday is very interactive, And each day ends by looking at one particular issue that our culture challenges us with today. So, for example, when we look at the story of creation in Genesis 1 to 3, we get someone in to talk to us about the issue of gender. And how do we engage with friends and family and colleagues who have very different ideas about gender to what the Bible teaches? School of Applied Theology will put tools into your hands to help bring that about. But don't just take my word for it. Here's what some of this year's students have to say.
I would encourage anyone to do SAT so they can understand God for themselves.
As a new believer, SATs give me a great foundational understanding of the Bible to which to build your faith and your understanding of what Christianity is all about.
It will help you to enhance your knowledge in terms of theology.
These days just get me so excited about God. I wish there were more, I really do.
Done 3 years of SAT. Every moment has been fantastic. Really excellent Bible teaching. The big picture of what the Bible's about. Fantastic. Do it.
If God's prompting you to do the School of Applied Theology, can I just urge you to be faithful, because He'll get you through it. It may be hard, but you can do it.
Well, if you want to know more, go to our website where you'll find further details and also costs which are kept really to a minimum. We even throw in a hot meal each Saturday included in the price. It's great value, and there are subsidies for those of you that need it. Check out the website, and there you'll also be able to apply to join us this September. Who wouldn't want to be a world changer and cultural reformer? Come and get yourself equipped. Come and join us on School of Applied Theology.
There we go. Amazing. Amazing.
Who is on the screen?
Just I think it would be great, you know, like I say, I can totally agree with all of obviously those statements and things like that. Why don't we just kind of pause with the School of, you know, Applied Theology? Let me just say, Mike, I have to give it the full title if that's all right, because being a primary teacher, when you start talking about SAT and SATs, that means a completely different thing. And, you know, the blood drain. No. You know, I promise I won't get political at the, you know, this kind of thing and air my thoughts about education and so on. This is not the show for that. All right. But why don't we just kind of pause that? Because I want to come back to it. And, you know, again, it'd be great. You know, we might even put on the video again a little bit later on. You never know. But why don't we pause that? Because it'd be great to hear a little bit of your story. We've kind of given you that. We've heard your pen portrait, and, you know, but already I can see some of the questions. We've got some great questions coming in about SATs, about the theology course and so on, school. I'm tripping over that now, aren't I? I can't even say SAT, Anyway, but, you know, it'd be great to hear your story then. So, go on. I always ask the same kind of questions, Mike, to be honest. You know, what was life like before, and then what was life like when you got to that point of making a decision to commit yourself to knowing Jesus, into that active living relationship with Jesus and for yourself as Saviour, and then what's life like since then? We've heard that, you know, obviously you've been involved in a lot of ministry in your late 20s. You said that you got involved in pastoring a church and so on. So it'd be great. Why don't you tell us your story, Mike? And I tell you what, I'll shut up for a while, and it'd be great to hear from you.
Well, I grew up in a very poor working class family in South Yorkshire, in a mining village in the old West Riding of Yorkshire. And probably like most kids there, you know, didn't see huge futures for yourself at that time. My grandparents on both sides of the family were both Christians. My mum's parents were in the Salvation Army, full uniform. Granddad used to play the trombone.
Yeah.
Grandma tambourine. And I remember that from being a youngster. And my dad's parents were Church of England, and my grandfather was a lay preacher.
Right.
But my own folks drifted away from God. Drifted away really through something I think people might identify with, life being hard. And it was particularly hard for Dad, who was a soldier in World War II, who saw his best mate blown to pieces next to him. He survived, mate didn't. And at that point, it was like he had to put God to one side. I don't think he ever rejected God, but he couldn't cope with him. Just didn't know what to do with him, so he got put to one side. So when I was growing up, although we were poor, my parents really tried to give me the very best that they could. And one of the best things they could do in those days was send me to Sunday school, because that's what you did. They never went to church themselves, but I got sent to the local Wesleyan Reformed Sunday School, which there are in that part of Yorkshire. And so heard the stories about Jesus from being pretty young, and heard them from my grandparents. But at the age of 11, I made two decisions that were probably the worst decisions ever of my life. The age of 11, I won a place to grammar school, which was like, the big step forward for getting out of the poverty that our family had been in. So knowing that I would need to give myself to studying hard at the age of 11, I made two decisions. One was I stopped piano lessons. A friend of my dad's used to give me piano lessons, but he was an ex-sergeant major in the army, and he used to treat me like one of his troops. So I really got fed up with his lessons. And the second thing was I stopped going to Sunday school, and with hindsight, I wish I'd done either of those. So for the next 7 years, I never darkened the door of a church until I was in upper sixth at school. When one of my mates at school said to me, "Hey, how'd you fancy coming along to our youth club on Friday night?" And it was, the traditional old style youth club of, young people getting together and table tennis and going out and doing stuff together. And I said, "Oh, yeah, that sounds interesting. Where does it meet?" And he said, "Oh, it's at our church, at the Baptist church." And I said, "Oh, no, I don't think so. Thanks. I'll give that a miss." It was. And then he said the thing that turned my life around. He said, "There are lots of pretty girls there." And I said to him, "What time does it start?" And sure enough, I turned up that Friday at 7:30 to this fantastic bunch of young people. Actually, it was only a very small little Baptist church on the outskirts of Barnsley, where I grew up. But about 35, 40 young people there. And there was a real buzz to the group. And I thought, wow, this is great. And they befriended me. I mean, with hindsight and see what they were doing, they were trying to present Jesus to me. And I really, really enjoyed going along to this youth club. And it was I was just about to finish sixth form and hopefully going off to university that autumn. First boy from my village ever to go to university, by the way.
Wow.
So again, that tells you something about my background. Now, as those first few weeks went by, I really got into this youth club, really enjoyed it. But then the deacon, the church leader who was in charge of the youth club, they used to do a little epilogue at the end of every Friday night, and it was only 10 minutes. And I thought, oh, fine, 10 minutes of religion, I can cope with that, because there were lots of pretty girls there. So it was worth it. But he happened to say one Friday night, after I'd been going for a few weeks, in the announcements, "Now, we just need to remind you of the rules of the youth club. One is that you pay your subs every week." Well, it was only like 10 pence a week or something, so that was fine. "And the other is, we do ask that you come to church once a month." And I thought, oh, no, this is terrible. I don't want to go to church. But there were lots of pretty girls there. So I thought, oh, come on, Mike, it's only an hour a week. An hour a month, you can cope with this. So I went along, and I've never stopped going.
Wow.
And what actually happened, Dave, over that summer was, as I was hearing sermons each week and hearing about Jesus, it's like it resonated with things that I'd heard when I was young. But there was something more. It wasn't just, nice Bible stories. I could see that for the folk around me and for these young people and the other folk in the church, this stuff was real. This Jesus was real to them. He wasn't just a historical figure.
Yeah.
And what I found happening as that summer went on was everything they were saying about Jesus, I found myself inside saying, yeah, I agree with that.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And slowly something was happening so that by the end of the summer, just before I went off to university, up here actually, as it turns out, at Durham, there was a point that came where I thought, I'm sure I'm a Christian now. I'm sure I've made that transition. But it was, for me, it was no like blinding light moment like it is for some people.
Yeah.
It was just a steady, slow, yeah, I think I agree with that. I think I agree with that. And then I remember one night just getting down by the side of my bed on my knees, because I thought that was the thing you were supposed to do, and praying and saying, look, God, I'm pretty sure I know you by now, and I'm pretty sure I've let Jesus in, but just so I've done this properly, I want to say that now, and I remember looking at my watch, can't remember the exact date, but I remember it was 10 to midnight. And I said, now at 10 to midnight on such and such a day, I want to give my life to you. And I waited for the second hand to get to the top of my watch and then said, now. Hindsight, it seems a bit daft, but I think I just wanted God to know that I was serious about making that decision. But it came through a journey. It came through looking at the stuff, hearing the stuff, thinking this makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
And it all coming together. And that was really the start of the journey for me. I went off to uni at Durham, one of the third years in my college, Van Mildert College, discovered I'd only just become a Christian and took me under his wing and mentored me.
Right.
And started teaching me how to read the Bible, how to pray, took me along to church. He used to go out preaching at little Baptist churches nearby, and he would say to me things like, well, do you want to come with me? And he had this really old clapped out Mini whose windscreen wipers never worked, and I always used to have to look out the bottom left-hand corner when it was raining bad to tell him which way to go. But through that, I started getting exposed to things, and it was during that first year, and I actually know where it was. It was in Eschwinning Baptist Church. I don't even know if it's there anymore, but it was in a tiny little Baptist village where he'd gone out to preach in the morning, and then we went back to a local farmer's for lunch, and the farmer had such a thick northeastern accent, I didn't understand a word he said, but I just used to smile and nod. And then Derek preached again that evening, and I remember sitting at the back of that church watching Derek preach and thinking, I wonder if I'll do that one day.
Yeah.
And actually, I think that was the start of God dropping a seed in my heart for what eventually became my life's calling. So both in terms of becoming a Christian and becoming a pastor, neither of them were blinding lights. They were journeys of looking at things, weighing them up, and coming to sort of considered conclusions.
Amazing. Let me, because I did encourage people to ask questions, and we want to interact and want to take the time to, kind of, there's some really good questions kind of coming in. Let me just jump on a few of these already. Paul Saxton, who earlier on did say he's getting a bit of a reputation, and apologies, Paul, but we're just joshing. We're just joking, aren't we? But he does want to know this. Did all these pretty girls at the youth group feel the same way about you?
Well, one of them did.
And that kind of answers then, obviously, the next Paul's just said, do you still keep in touch with any of the youth club? One of them. At least.
One of them.
Yeah.
I think we've all spread all over the place since then.
Yeah.
So still keep in touch with a couple of them. But yeah, one of them very closely.
And Alan was always good for a question. He just said that, what did you actually study at uni?
Yeah, I studied French and German.
Right.
And that's just because those were two of my best subjects at school. Now, remember what I said about my background. I came from this incredibly poor working class family background where my parents made huge sacrifices, even to get to grammar school and to buy the uniform and a satchel and things like that.
Yeah.
So any sort of education beyond leaving school at 15 was huge in my family. And I just found that I was good. I was rubbish at the sciences. I I dropped chemistry after one term because I still could never work out why an H plus an O became an H2O, and I could never work out where the two. So my plans of wanting to be a doctor one day disappeared down the plug hole with my failed chemistry. But I was really quite good at arts, at languages and history and things like that. French and German were two things that I'd really loved. So remember when I went off to uni, while I was a Christian when I went, I wasn't a Christian when I applied.
Right.
And this is amazing things, God at work in our life, even before we know him. Because God had so ordered my life that, I applied not just for French and German, which would come in late because I ended up working in French-speaking countries as a pastor as well and as a teacher. But going to Durham and meeting this guy, Derek Tidball, who mentored me and whom God used probably to end up getting me in the ministry. And all that was planned before I even knew God. But God knew. And I love that about God. He knows us long before we know him.
Yeah, absolutely. Alan's just asking, you can see it on screen. What was your career plan at that point then when you joined, when you applied to uni?
Well, what I wanted to do was to go to uni, get my degree, and the thing I had longed to do. Well, the first thing I ever wanted to be was a train driver, but then I suppose most kids do, don't they? Certainly in those days. But from being very young, I wanted to be a school teacher. That was my big thing. That was day before SATs, so I wanted to be a school teacher, and my career plan was I'd become a teacher. I wanted to work my way up and become a head teacher one day. It's funny, isn't it? Because even there, that drive in me to want to teach is something that ended up coming out eventually, but perhaps in a slightly different way to what I'd planned it to be.
Yeah.
Again, God at work in our lives long before any of us ever know it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So from, obviously being inspired by amazing guy from what you're saying, Derek, who mentored you and took you along in these dangerous mini driving and so on, and obviously all of these places, just a kind of dropping the seed in there. I wonder if I'm going to do that someday. How did you then get from finishing uni and did you say it was about 27 or so? Did you say that your late 20s when you?
Bit of a gap because I did a modern languages degree. I had to spend a year abroad.
Right.
So I spent a year in France, in Montpellier, in the south of France. And while I was there, got involved going along to an Assembly of God church, Pentecostal church.
Yeah.
There happened to be, again, God's fingerprints here. There happened to be a pastor there who just loved English people. Right. And again, took me under his wing. He used to take me out when he went preaching. And towards the end of my year there, I was working as an assistant English teacher in a big French school while trying to improve my own French. Towards the end of the year, the French pastor said to me, "Why don't you stay with me? Don't go back to Durham and finish your degree. Stay here and train as a pastor with me," which was how you did it in the Assembly of God in those days. Yeah. It's like an apprenticeship on the job. And do you know what? I really wrestled with that because I loved French. I loved that church. I loved that guy. And nearly stayed in France, but eventually thought, do you know what? No, I think I need to go back and finish my degree because you never know when a piece of paper might be important. Yeah. A quality.
Yeah.
So with tears in my eyes, I left. I went back to Durham. I finished my degree. During that final year, began to think, what should I be doing? And felt what I needed to do was now to go and train. And just as I sharpened my brain up with French and German, I felt if you're going to be a pastor, which is what I felt God calling me to, then you need to sharpen up your brain where the Bible's concerned as well. Yeah. So I applied to what is now called London School of Theology, what was then called London Bible College all those years ago, for another degree there, and was going to go straight on from Durham. But then as I got towards the end of my year at Durham, I thought, do you know what? That will mean I've done 4 years here, 3 years there, and I've not really been out and had a job because the teaching assistant's job in France was very part-time-ish, really. And I thought, I need to go and get a job so I know what it's like as a pastor for people to get up in the morning and go out to work.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, what would you do? And I thought, well, what did you always want to do in life? I wanted to be a school teacher. Now, I know it was still in education, but it was at the other side of the desk, you know, and the harder side. And in those days, you could become a school teacher without getting a teacher training qualification first. You could learn on the job, again, decide, you know, mentoring on the job. And so I was praying about it and thought, God, I think it might be good to take a year out. Got hold of the Times educational supplement that week, turned to the section for French, and there in the French section, just one advert that week, wanted teacher of French, 1 year only, Crossley and Porter School, Halifax. I applied, much to my surprise, was interviewed and got offered the job. Then I decided to stay on for a second year, because by doing 2 years, I then got my formal teaching qualification, which again, later in my life. So I ended up doing 2 years as a teacher, you know, knowing what it means to get up day in, day out, get up, get to work, is difficult kids, go home, mark homework and everything else. And I felt that was really important, that I learned something of the routine of life and mixing with people who weren't. If I was going to try and help equip other people to do the same. So I did that, and then I went to London School of Theology and did my theology degree for 3 years.
Wow. I mean, you know, obviously, just as people are listening and commenting, you can see that, you know, how God's kind of, you know, like you say, you describe it as God's fingerprints, and God obviously always has a plan for us even before we know him. And you know, again, using all of your skills and the gifts that he's given you and your love for teaching, obviously moving that into later, you know, obviously your experiences there. I'm just checking some of these kind of questions that we've got in here, because they're actually coming in thick and fast. I think people are taking the opportunity, Mike, just to get you know, not their own back, but, you know, obviously doing the School of Theology, you ask us a lot of questions, right, this is our opportunity. Come on. So yeah, let me put, I mean, Alan Fraser's just going mad, as you know. Alan's great asking questions, isn't he? But, you know, what about a bit of advice, you know, if somebody feels like they're being called to be a pastor, you know, being sure of their calling? I suppose you could broaden that out, not just being a pastor, but, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think what I'd say is this. Look, you're never going to be anything in the future that you're not now, whether that's a pastor or a prophet or a teacher or whatever.
Yeah.
In what you've got, you start with what opportunities are there now. Don't just keep waiting for this golden door to open. So, if you think God's called you to or a church leader, well, who are you pastoring now? Who are you starting to care for now? Who are you visiting? Who are you calling in on? What opportunities are you taking to share things from God's word, even in your small group, not as its leader, but just as a participant? So I think it starts by you doing what you were doing now. And as you do that, it's as if then God opens up opportunities. And I think it's there that you're testing out your career and your calling, whether that's a pastor or anything else, really.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. You just froze a little bit on screen there, so, you know, that little awkward silence there was just because I'm just kind of making sure that you'd finished on that. But that's amazing advice. I love that golden door kind of, you know, but you're never going to be anything in the future that you're not doing now. And like I said, really, really amazing, you know, helpful advice and so on. So, what about that? I mean, as always, I've got a big clock on my right hand side here, and, you know, time seems to speed up during these hours. We generally do about an hour. Yeah. And it's going so quickly already, and I know we haven't covered everything because, again, but that wealth of experience that you have. What about when you got into that role as a pastor of a church? Now you've experienced what it's like to get up day in, day out and do the work thing. You know, I'm not saying that pastors don't work. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying here, but, you know, now you've experienced that. How did it get into your first kind of leadership role, your pastoring role within a church?
Well, I think it helps you, you know, once you're in there as a pastor, it definitely helps you to not just think church and not just think religion. You know, what you really is Paul talks about the work of the ministries being to equip the saints for the work of ministry in Ephesians chapter 4. So, equipping the saints for the work of ministry is not just teaching them how to do a Bible study.
Yeah.
It's teaching them how to handle situations when people on your team aren't cooperating. It's teaching them how to respond when you get negative feedback about things. So it's as much about attitudes and actions. So I think one of the things that does is to equip you to try and be, very practical. And that's, one of the things that we ended up trying to do with the School of Applied Theology. The key is in applied.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any value just theology for its own sake. I love theology. Look at the books behind me. I love reading. I love studying. But I think at the end of all your reading, all your studying, even at the end of your Bible reading daily, if you're doing it on your own, the answer always needs to be, so what? I've read this, I've taught this, so what? How will this make in my life? How will it make a difference in someone else's life? And that's why I love the Christian faith, because it's not just about head knowledge. It's not just about acquiring theology. It's about developing a relationship with Father God that helps you to live life different and that helps you to make a difference to other people.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, I love that. And again, people are just, if I just put some of these comments on screen just so you can see that, obviously, Jess, thanks for joining us, Jess. Don't wait for the golden door. What you're doing now, brilliant. Jess again is obviously inspired by what you're saying there. Like many of us, and again some real nuggets to kind of take away. And then Paul again has just kind of said, enjoy and embrace today and now. Like you said, what God's doing now, and I love that idea of.
One of the things that happens is, as you embrace what God's giving you now, and as Jesus once said, if you're faithful in little, you'll be faithful in much. To him who's given little, if you're faithful in it, God will give you more. And as you're faithful in it and do what God's given you, it's as if God then expands things and gives you more and more to do. I mean, remember I said I was a lad from a poor working class mining village.
Yeah.
The first lad in the whole village ever to go to uni. But when I look now and think where I have been and what I have done in the years since that young lad, when I think of all the countries that I've visited in the world to teach and preach and work in Bible colleges and seminaries and help with leaders' conferences, and when I think of the books that I've written, and when I think that I've worked for UCB Radio and BBC Radio as well, by the way, and I think, wow, for that little lad from there, and I never set out to do any of those. I never sat down and thought, I'm going to write several books one day. I'm going to work for BBC Radio one day. Do you know what? All I did was the next thing that God gave me.
Yeah.
And if we will do the next thing that God gives us faithfully, then God will give us the next thing after that.
Love it.
And after that. And I think each time the opportunity then spreads, and little by little you begin to discover what you're especially good at and what you're not so good at and what you're better leaving to other people to do.
Yeah. Love it. I mean, again, the comments are going in the comment section on my left hand side on the monitor. I'm just reviewing them. I'm just going really mad, which is great. And like I say, faith, God's, I love that. And the next thing, if you're faithful in the little, and God will, allow you to be faithful in the more, and the next step, and the next step, and again, there's so much in there. You mentioned there BBC and obviously UCB as well. In terms of the broadcasting experience, how did they come about then? Obviously.
Well, do you know what? Pretty much like most things in my life, by accident, inverted commas.
Yeah.
And again, this thing of if you'll just keep faithfully doing what God gives you to do, God has a way of opening doors. So how did the BBC thing come about? Well, it came about because when I was a pastor in Oxford, I was a pastor in Oxford for 25 years before I moved up here 6 years ago in my semi-retirement. And while there, you get invited sometimes to write little pieces for the local newspaper, or your local BBC radio station often says, hey, do you fancy coming in and, doing a thought for the day, or doing a newspaper And I started out doing that. And eventually, a number of things happened. One was through the Sunday morning presenter on our local radio station, I got to know him, and he said, "Hey, how would you feel about doing a Christmas carol concert sort of live from your church," which was a big warehouse type building in Oxford with a huge capacity, but also will like go to outside broadcast. How do you fancy presenting that with me? And I said, "Yeah, sounds good fun." Then got to the actual day and felt terrified. And at the end of that, the head of radio for BBC Oxford was there in the audience, and he came up to me and he just said, "Hey, you were really good tonight. You present really well on radio. How do you fancy having a program of your own?" Wow. And I looked and laughed. He said, "No, I'm serious." And I said, "Okay." And he held his hand out to shake my hand, and we shook hands on it. And he said, "I'll be in touch after Christmas." And I thought that would be the last I ever hear from him.
Yeah.
But true to his word, come January, he called me in, we had a meeting, and a long story short, I ended up doing 3 series of 6 programs each called Journeys, which really took one theme and explored from a Christian perspective, interspersed it with modern Christian music. And so I had to learn how to run a BBC desk, because pretty much everything on BBC Radio is self-operating. So I had 24 faders, 4 computer screens, headphones. Out of that, I ended up doing some of the BBC Sunday morning live broadcasts, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. on a Sunday. I remember the very first time I did that live on my own, I was the only person in the station at that time in the morning. And I saw the second hand sweeping up to 6 o'clock, you know, when you're going to open the pages and get that beep, beep, beep of the BBC and then read the news. And I sat there thinking, dear God, why did I say yes? But knowing it was too late. And so, yeah, out of that grew a number of things that I did for BBC Radio. And then how did I come to do UCB Radio? Another accident. Because I take tours to Israel, and I happened to get invited to a freebie by the tour operator that I go with. And I happened to share a room on that tour with a guy called David Taverner, who happened to be the former producer of BBC Songs of Praise, and who happens now to be the head of radio at UCB Radio.
Wow.
And at that time, I'd just written one of my books, this one here, I don't know if you can see, Christian Basics, by I produced, which I told him about and he loved. And again, a long story short, he said, "Hey, how do you fancy doing something for UCB Radio?" So I'm now in my 3rd year of series for them. I do a half-hour broadcast and podcast for them every week. And even today was just in conversation with David, making plans for next year. And next year, rather than doing it in the studio, we are thinking of going back to Israel and doing a program from there together.
Wow. Amazing.
So there you are. It's all accident, really. I just keep putting one in front of the other, and God opens doors. But again, I just feel like, you know, God wants us to underline that tonight. Just do faithfully what he gives you.
Yeah.
Just do faithfully what he gives you. And when the next opportunity comes, go on, have courage, give it a go, step out. It might be terrifying, like those moments before the BBC Pips. But who knows what God might open up for you if you're just faithful and do what he gives you to do.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, Mike, that's so encouraging. You know, I personally am really encouraged by that. And, you know, again, you know, thank you for your wisdom and everything that you shared. I'm just conscious we've got about 5 minutes left or so, and I just want to kind of come full circle back to the School of Theology. But, you know, again, thank you. And I know that people are just kind of really encouraged by what you're, you know, kind of sharing tonight. Let me just put a comment, you know, a good friend of ours, Stephen, and, you know, obviously just, again, the impact that you're having in terms of, you know, encouraging him. I mean, obviously he describes himself, you know, he's not being very kind to himself there, but, you know, to falling in love with learning again. I know it's amazing. Yeah. And Stephen, again, is one of those people that I want to get on the show, and we've actually got a date, you know, he's coming up as well.
That's great. Steve is a great guy. You know, he came to me shortly after he'd become a Christian, and said, I want to do the School of Theology. And I said to him, well, you know, you're a young Christian, you know, I'm not sure if it's quite ready for you. You're ready for it yet? And he said to me, all right, what do I need to do to convince you to come? And I said, okay, I've written 6 booklets on basics of the Christian life. They're workbooks. I want you to work through them. He said, okay. And he worked through every single one of them, completed them, and came back to me and said, right, I've done that. Now what? And I thought, okay, you can come on the course.
Love it. Love it. Absolutely. And, you know, I just put his second comment on there, which is, you know, he loves it with, you know, God open doors and just say yes and walk through it. It's amazing. And I know he's doing amazing things as part of the Eden Project and everything else. You know, I love to kind of, like I said, I'm looking forward to him coming on the show. And I loved, you know, when we bump into each other at, you know, like things, events like Connect Stockton, for example, at the Moses Project and so on. So, you know, I'm really looking forward to kind of hearing his story and what God's doing through him and living his life that way, which is amazing stuff. Let's come full circle then to, I'm just going to go back to one of the comments on here. Just, if you give me a moment, just to see, because I don't want to miss all of them, but it was really about the School of Theology again. And Paul, you know, obviously he was doing a lot about this. Paul Saxton, that is. Good old Mr. Saxton. You know, he's heavily involved in kind of qualification. Just a kind of quick question there about, you know, would you look to move that course into professional kind of qualification for those who maybe want to take it on to do a degree, for example? I know he's doing lots of work around that at the moment.
Well, yeah, we are looking. I've been talking with Martin Dunkley, who leads Tees Valley Community Church and Taking Ground. We have been having some conversations about how we develop School of Theology for the future. We do have some ideas, which we're starting to work through. Certainly for next year, it will continue as it does now, which is 5 Saturdays each year, plus the option of 5 tutorials. A 3-year program that people can do 1 year at a time in any order. Do 1, 2, 3 or 1, 3, 2. But we are looking to develop it down the road.
Yeah.
But I think for that as well, you know, I'm probably going to have to find a successor to pass that on to. It's going to need a lot more energy and zeal than probably I've got as the years are ticking by a little bit. So yeah, we're looking into that and certainly hoping to develop School of Applied Theology for years to come. But yeah, if any folk, you know, are watching this and want some part-time theological training, check out our website, appliedtheology.school. You can find all the info about it there, the sort of things we cover on our course, the cost. We really do keep it as cheap as possible. It starts from £100 and even half that price if you're unemployed or you're a student. So yeah, check out that website and find out a little bit more about how you could get equipped to not just know the Bible. For me, that's not the end in itself. To know the Bible so that it can both change your life and you're equipped to go out and engage with the world and a society that's increasingly lost and doesn't know, you know, where its answers are.
Yeah.
But to have answers that are reasoned and reasonable and are not just banging people over the head with the Bible, but we're trying to equip people to be able to answer the questions that people are asking and to lead them from where they are to where they need to be, which is knowing God as their Father through a relationship with Jesus, which changes everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Mike, you know, like time's beaten us really. Like I say, I try to be quite disciplined in keeping it to an hour, but I think it's always good. I mean, we could fill, you know, another hour at least, you know, and beyond. And I think it's always good to, you know, leave them wanting more. And like, you know, it's always a good thing, isn't it? You know, I really want to encourage everybody to kind of, you know, Mike's reference, you know, certainly the podcasts, etc., that he does, and the number of books that he's authored and contributed to, and I really want to encourage people to check those out, and we look forward to the new one when that's available. That the title that you can't allow us to know at this point, but we look forward to that one coming out, and you know, get that, you know, purchased and read.
If I could just give one plug, it would be for UCB, where I did podcasts each week. You can go to the UCB player, go to their podcast section in that, and you'll find a series called Bible Biogs in 30 Minutes, which is about Bible characters, Bible books in 30 minutes. This year, Bible Surprises in 30 minutes, and next year, well, can't tell you that either because that's the secret. Yeah, check out the UCB player or any podcast provider and search for Bible books in 30 minutes or Bible Surprises in 30 minutes, and you'll find them there.
Yeah. Like you said, you're such a pro. Leave them wanting more, can't you? Tell you, just give them that little bit of a hint, draw them in for next year. Absolutely. I know that. Let me see. Steve already said about the the intention for developing the SATs course further. Signing him up, obviously, he's very keen. Jess has already said this as well. Sounds fantastic, and again, really positive. Mr. Saxon saying great work. Obviously he's got. It's a big important thing in life, isn't it? We've got Mr. Saxon's seal of approval, so that's good, And so just to kind of round things off, I mean, like Mike, you said there, please, and I really love the UCB podcasts that you do and so on. So those in those 30-minute slots, very accessible. You can good chunks, and so really well worthwhile. Kind of tune in for those, and again, just to illustrate what people have really enjoyed tonight and appreciate you, Mike, and all bringing all of your wisdom in, all of your experiences. I mean, I've been scribbling, the nuggets from tonight. Those, like I say, that's I've got from, but again, there's just so much. It almost, I want to do 6 weeks just listening and just soaking in the wisdom and your thoughts and all of these kind of things. Amazing, Mike. Thank you and appreciate that. Let me just say for everybody who might be thinking, I am doing the School of Applied Theology course. I complete the days, there's no test. I'm not sucking up to teacher to make sure I pass. And all of that kind of things. I am genuinely, speaking of experiences and so on. And I really do mean it, Mike. It's great. And obviously, thank you and thank you, Gordon and Matt and all of the other people who were involved in delivering those days. That are, I mean, again, you saw in the video, the promo video, you even throw in the great food, which is brilliant, and the venue and everything. It's just, they're amazing. They're amazing days. And I love, like you say, it's applied. I love that idea of, well, so what? It's not just about filling your head, it's about living it out. And again, it's those application sessions are brilliant and so on. There's, again, I can't rave about it enough. I never got a feature on the actual video, mainly because I've got a face for radio, as they say. But there we go. Alan Fraser, can I put this one on screen, Mike? If that's all right. Alan Fraser's been a bit naughty with this one, but he's unashamedly just asking you to come and join Embrace Church. I'd second that as well, so, you'd be more than welcome, Liz, you'd be amazing, and certainly, come and share your wisdom with us, and, even if you can just visit, but we'd love to have you. There we go. And just to finish off, otherwise this is going to take forever, Mike Connolly has very kindly, this is the name that we have got, ourselves are now termed as the Darlington Mafia, it seems, at Schools of Applied Theology, where we all seem to sit on the back row. Not that we're very, we just like to position ourselves there. We try and behave. Mainly the poor influence, the bad influence is Mr. Fraser, like I say, which is just taking that, role of senior pastor onto the disruptive kind of level. There we go. Mike, it's been great. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate you giving up your time tonight, like I say. And have you enjoyed it? Has it been okay?
It's been good. Good. Enjoyed it.
Phew. I'm glad about that. I'm laughing there because, Mr. Fraser there, he says, we'll train you up, Mike. Obviously, if you do come to Embrace Church, you've got lots to learn, I'm sure. Certainly in the Embrace way of doing things.
Steely sheep, but,
So let me just wrap things up. But if you want to just kind of stay on the line in the background, and I'll just chat with you afterwards for a little bit, if that's okay, Mike. But again, just let me say thank you. And, at some point... if you're not already connected with Mr. Paul Hutchinson about your train, kind of obsession, then you need to, because I think he's just, he's one of those kind of spotters as well, and he has a bit of a model kind of thing going on as well. All right. I'll see you. I'll talk to you in a little bit. Let me just wrap things up then. All right. So let me just put this on here as well. Actually, one more time. There's those contact details. But of course, if you want to get in touch with Mike, I'm sure he's more than happy if you kind of, if you kind of, search for him on Facebook and so on. Clearly, what we want you to do at this point is think very seriously about, getting on the School of Applied Theology. Head over to the site. It's all the information's there. Really, really clear, really amazing, astounding value for the, the quality of the, the day and the teaching that you get. So let me kind of come back to here, and so really what I want to do is encourage you to, like I say, to do that and get involved. Check out Taking Ground, like I say, the website and so on. We're really thankful that Mike's been able to give up, that time, and I know he's a very busy guy and so on. So, again, we just want to kind of say thank you to him, and everybody else, set your timers, your reminders for next Wednesday, where we'll have our next guest. Like I say, let me just kind of put those pictures up again, just so you can see that these are some of the wonderful people coming up, that we're going to hear from. And the plans are continuing to do this, post summer, and I'm working on those kind of, asking people, inviting people, to kind of join us as well. All right. Feel free, if you've got somebody that you think would be a really good guest on the show, feel free to contact us. Drop us a message, direct message us via the Embrace Church page, and it'd be great to, or if my own profile on Facebook, on my socials, if you want to do that, that's not a problem as well. All right. Thank you very much for joining us. You've been amazing. Thanks for everybody who's contributed tonight. It's made it really interactive, and actually the time has just gone amazingly quick. But bless you. Have a great week. And take care. Bye-bye.